He's muted, but I unmuted.
Yeah. Let me confirm he's still there. Want to do a sound check? Okay.
No, I mean, I talked to him, but there he is, I talked to him.
Oh,
That's why I said I have to stare at your face for the next hour.
yes. Okay. I can spread out here. There. His bumble's taking over here. Thank goodness. All right. What do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
You should be good.
All right.
Yeah.
So we will
Allow me to report.
call this meeting of the Palmer Special City Council meeting to order at 5:00 p.m. on December 12th, 2023. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti, Councilmember Cooper,
Present.
Councilmember Best,
Here.
Councilmember Tudor,
Here.
Mayor Carrington,
Here.
Councilmember Moline, Councilmember Alcantara.
Here.
So both Deputy Mayor Anzalotti and Councilwoman Moline basically texted in sick. So if there's no objection, we'll give them an excused absence. And if everyone could stand, I don't know if I could ask Rachel House to lead us in the pledge. So next is approval of the agenda. What's the wishes of the council?
Move to approve the agenda for the special committee meeting.
Second. So moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, you want to go ahead and call the roll, please?
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Yes.
All right. With an approved agenda, we've got new business committee of the whole, Palmer Library Project, with a note that action may take place after the committee of the whole. So do we have to vote to go into a committee of the whole?
Yes, we need a motion.
We need a motion and, okay, so
So moved. Second.
it's been moved and seconded. If there's no objection, we'll consider it unanimous that we're going into committee of the whole. And we have a presentation by Mr. Wolf,
Brad's first.
or Brad's going first. Mr. Hanson.
Good evening, thank you. We just wanted to quickly, the library committee wanted to quickly give you
You want to pull it a little closer to yourself?
an update, report on behalf of the library committee. Members are the mayor, myself, Mr. Moosey, and Beth Scow. We act as kind of an interface between the consultant and the cities and the community's interests. And so that's, I just wanted to give you a quick update. So you all know the reason why we're here, and that is because of the catastrophic collapse last February. Last April, we issued an RFP for architectural services, and Wolf Architecture of Palmer was our highest scorer, and they were selected. In July, they began work. Okay, and their contract was basically to determine the feasibility of alternatives for reconstruction of the Palmer Library. It was defined kind of in three ways: either to repair and expand it, or replace it in its entirety.
Is that working?
That's what I wondered, is it a PowerPoint or an Adobe?
Scroll down.
Yeah, it's not a PowerPoint.
Okay.
That's why.
It's not PowerPoint.
Is it working?
Oh, now it is.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Okay. Is that where you want to be?
So I just wanted to update you on the scope, and the scope is going very well. We're very happy with Wolf, what they've achieved to date. I want to remind you what the two phases of the contract were. Phase one was concept development and process. Part of that was determining the structural integrity of our current facility. That report was conducted by P&D engineers in February of last year. They're a local outfit, well, they're a worldwide outfit, but they have a local office here in Palmer. We're very happy with that. They also were required to perform a condition survey. That was given to us on August 3rd. And I do want to say that if you're on your computer or when you get to your computer, all of these links to the individual, for architectural services or the structural report or the conditions report are online if you want to look at those, okay? The second phase of the project was to develop conceptual schematic designs and cost estimates for these three alternatives. So they're in the process, and this is what one of this meetings is about, is kind of an interim step into determining the direction the council wishes to go. They were to provide design options as well. Tonight there we'll talk about some of the things. During this process, we involved the public as much as we possibly could. We conducted public meetings, we conducted stakeholder meetings, other outreaches included Friday Fling, comment boards in the library, and as well as an online survey. We met with them individually on the dates listed there on your page to make sure that the goals of the project, the goals of the community were trying to be met. I think what we learned from all of this process is through our public process is that we need an affordable community asset. We need a space that's adaptable and expandable. We need operational efficiency for the library staff and patrons. We need to meet the future needs of patrons. And really what's happened over the course of the last 30, 40 years of library services is technology has changed. Our library network system is much bigger. In the past, we didn't interface with the other libraries around the state. That adds significant workload to our personnel because they're constantly not only processing patrons' books from our library, but other libraries as well. So that needs to be considered when we talk about a new space. We need more community gathering space. The community, you know, it's changed over the last many, many years, and the community relies more on the library to be able to meet not only individually or one-on-one with people, but also as groups. And so the community serves, or the library serves a big need and a big void in that respect. And also the library has transformed into a community resource outlet. A lot of the agencies, whether they're governmental or philanthropical organizations, have kind of deferred to the library to be able to provide these services. And thanks to our library personnel, they've accepted that role and provided it in a very comprehensive fashion. The other things we've learned is, you know, I think the community wants and needs a significant community building. Mr. Moosey refers to it as your legacy project, and I think he's right on. I think this could add significant positive things to downtown Palmer. Meeting rooms available for public use. The building needs to connect and contribute to the lot surroundings and the view. People wanted views with natural light. Also, increased accessibility. I think there's a big need to shove that building towards the parking lot or redevelop the parking lot in some capacity, because seniors and families with young children have a more difficult time accessing it. So I do want to quickly talk about the next step of this project from the city's perspective. We do need to conduct an environmental survey for hazardous materials report, so that we don't get any unintended consequences down the road. It shouldn't be a huge cost. Fortunately, it's outside the scope of Gary's contract. However, he's agreed to assist us with trying to coordinate that effort to find an environmental engineer to assess that. The feasibility cost for the alternatives, that will be to you on January 23rd. That will give you an idea of what we're talking about for costs for those 3 alternatives. And then ultimately a selection of which way the council wishes to go on the reconstruction. Lastly, Wolf's contract will be up at the end of January, and we're gonna have to determine where the city goes from there, whether we try to re-engage Wolf Architectural to do the design, the ultimate design of the facility, or whether we want to go out for RFP. Going out for RFP will delay the project considerably, so we'll have to take that into consideration for trying to get this thing completed in a timely way, as well as trying to minimize the costs we are going to have for rental space for the current library. Rental space is currently covered by the insurance, but that amount will run out once they determine ultimately what they believe would have been the time frame for repairing it. So at that point, those costs will have to be borne by the city. I just wanted to put a schedule on your calendar, so you're on the presentation, so you're really aware of what this looks like as far as the time. So tonight's 12/12 concept design presentation to City Council. These will be more general. They're not specific yet. He's still working on some of those. And on January 11th, he will have more finalized plans that he can send to an estimator to develop costs for the different projects. And then on January 23rd, we'll have the final schematic presentation to council by Wolf Architects. That concludes my part of this. I know you want to listen to Gary a lot more than you want to listen to me. And so if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this point or anywhere along the line.
Councilman Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Hanson. So any questions we have about costing and other things can be asked of Gary, and you'll still be here for the entirety of this meeting in case we need to ask you some things on that.
Yeah, Gary will go over what that looks like.
Okay, very good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And our favorite architect, Gary Wolf.
Have Laura up there with me.
That's
Hi, thank you very much for having us come and giving you this update on the library this evening. To give you an update on what we've done over the past month. What we've done over the past month. We have been able to, there we go. We've sort of advanced and refined the design program. We've done a little bit more, some work on some concept design and some site studies. And we are getting ready to move forward after this evening, hopefully get some direction on the next steps so that we could meet our requirements that we need to get done for the 23rd of January meeting. So relative to the design program, this program we're showing right here is an overview of the design program. Essentially, the building is broken up into roughly 5 different areas, and we're increasing the size of the facility by approximately 8,000 square feet, so the facility would be 20,000 square feet when done, and that was based off of all the input we received from the user groups and the library committee. And then we went through all of that information. We figured out exactly how many spaces and what spaces each function would be. We tested those spaces, and the little diagram on the bottom is that we drew all of the spaces that were sort of near each other and made sure that the fit and function was appropriate. So we feel very confident in that 20,000 square foot number. So the other thing that we did, we took this program and we developed some conceptual ideas for the library, which we then put on the site to make sure, to test and see how the library might fit best to be this center of downtown welcoming area that we talked about. Laura is going to kind of talk about the process that we went through with the building committee and also the public input, kind of going through the concept design and such.
So following the program phase, what we just looked at with a 20,000 square foot building, and after working through some of the adjacencies and understanding what wanted to go in the building, we then went through and identified what the next high-level design questions were, which you can see on this slide. So we created these boards for our last community open house to both identify the main questions that we had moving forward and try to gain some input from the public and just open the discussion on some of these larger things. So you can see here some of the feedback we got from the public. A two-story scheme is overwhelmingly preferred over a single story. Lots of glass and wood is desirable. There was not a lot of desire to break that strong visual connection through the site from Evergreen moving into Palmer and through the quad. So we'll be looking to place the building in such a way that we maintain that strong visual axis. And then there was a desire to engage with the street and downtown and promote walkability. So along with asking these questions, we put together 5 different building concepts that both showed those different high-level design decisions in different ways, and helped sort of give visuals to how we might place the building on the site in a few different options. So we looked at different ways of addressing the parking, the connection through the library site into the quad, different orientations for views and daylighting, and different arrangements of spaces within the site. So all of these schemes were based on the internal adjacencies that we had developed in the previous phase. One of these 5 focused on reimagining the existing building, so adding on to the existing structure. The other 4 were new construction, looking at a single story and 3 two-story schemes. So in developing these schemes, we were able to further identify what the primary project goals might be beyond what we were hearing from the public. So let me make sure I get these right. So in looking at these schemes, we heard feedback from the public and from the library committee that the building really wants to be more or less located where it is currently. That being said, nobody is excited about rebuilding or adding on to the existing structure. Overwhelmingly, everybody wants a new building. The next goal would be trying to maintain that existing parking lot to the best extent so that we aren't spending a lot of money redeveloping the parking lot, and yet bringing the building a little bit closer to that parking lot so that we can increase the number of accessible spaces. An integrated book drop-off is a really important element to the way the building is functioning on the site. So allowing somebody to drive through the site and access a window to either drop off a book and potentially check out a book from their vehicle. That will help maximize the efficiency of the staff without having to run out to a separate book drop-off zone. Let's see. Maintaining a southern orientation for the building was also identified as a primary project goal, and maintaining a pedestrian linkage between the downtown Palmer area and the quadrangle. So I'll turn it over to Gary. We used these schemes to help inform the preliminary budgetary numbers that we received from the estimator.
So we've engaged Ken Kastner, who's a longtime construction estimator, and we've worked with him for over a decade, and he works all over the state. He's very experienced. And we were tasked, as Brad indicated, with coming up with 3 costs so that you could make a decision on, or help make a decision on which direction to go. The first was to reconstruct the building exactly like it was originally, and we used the existing construction drawings for that. Ken came out, walked through the building, and then we did the existing condition survey, and then using those documents, he put together a cost that likely, given the fact that it collapsed in the wintertime and it sat so long being frozen, there's a high likelihood the mechanical system is shot. The electrical system has to be replaced because the codes have changed so much over the past 40 years. The finishes will have to be replaced. We're rebuilding, I think it was 2,500 square feet of collapsed area. And so there's not a huge amount of savings to be had there. It's probably going to be somewhere in the, low $600 a square foot range to get that done, $616, $625, something like that. So about $5.5 million to reconstruct the building exactly like it is, and that does not include any site costs. The other cost that is fairly easy, I wouldn't say easy, but to arrive at would be what a new building would cost, and that's based off of current market construction costs for buildings of similar complexity. And when we talked originally with the building committee, we were guessing somewhere at $650 a square foot, with $700 a square foot. We were thinking somewhere like that would be about right. Ken came back with $650 a square foot for new construction cost, given this very conceptual level of design, just kind of as a placeholder for right now, and that doesn't take into account any additional site costs. The most complex cost to try to arrive at is what it would cost to integrate the existing structure into a new building. That, as you know, that building is very unique. There are not very many walls that are parallel, lots of kind of 45-degree angles, all of the roof slope. So trying to tie into a building like that is very challenging, and it's particularly challenging to try to find out what that's going to cost, because it would take months and months and months of doing construction drawings and calculations to figure out exactly what could be used and how it would integrate into the building. So right now, he didn't give a cost. I'm thinking it's probably $700 a square foot, maybe $725. It is. He says it's the most expensive. I think it's the most expensive. We did, I think, a good job with the redesign of it, integrating it in Even so, I think most of the comments were, hey, your design looks great, tear it down. So, you know, we tried our best to have them keep it. Nobody seemed to want it. So it seems like, given the probable opinion of probable costs we have to date, the thing that makes the most sense is to move forward, unless you want to stay with the same size building, to move forward with a new building if the goal is to provide a library that's looking into the future for future needs. And our plan right now, if with the approval of the council, is to move forward with a single design scheme that integrates all of the comments that we have heard to date and put together enough information that the cost estimator can confirm his opinion of probable costs. We'll go through the 15% design phase, and that we'll have a narrative and do a site plan, and he'll be able to put together a better estimate for that. The other two estimates are probably not going to change given the high level of design, but they're probably very close to what would be expected from those. So if just kind of thinking about what it would take to construct a library, 20,000 square foot library, if you were to proceed with the most efficient way forward, and you could just kind of keep going, it would probably, if you went from, you know, the end of January, it would probably take till, you know, the first couple weeks in June or the third week in June to get the design drawings complete enough for bidding. It would take about a month to bid the project, and then probably 2 weeks to award it. So a contractor would most likely be able to start construction demolition of the existing facility the middle of August, and that would be probably a 2-week effort. So they could probably start getting footings in. This would probably be a steel building. Steel packages are about 6 months out at the best. There are a lot of the electrical and mechanical ventilation and electrical panels are a year out. So it may be, I'm not the contractor, but it may be that the contractor would just spend the winter going through all the submittals, ordering all the materials, having everything on site, and getting started in May of 2025 and constructed. And probably, if they had all the materials in site, that's about a year. But all said, it's probably somewhere between, you know, 14 to 18 months, depending on if they can get all the materials to. And so you're going to be probably somewhere between January and March of 2026 before you saw a building that you could occupy. So I think that's all that we have right now, and we would be happy to answer any and all your questions that we're able to.
Councilman Cooper.
Thank you. Gary, thanks. A couple of questions. One, we're talking about the existing building. Are you saying it's totally unusable, or can you use part of it as a separate building and then attach through a walkway or something, an additional building, so we already have space that's currently usable?
Yeah, you could do that, but at the same time, it's to a point where you still are going to be spending $616 a square foot to renovate. That is, it's not usable as it is, of course, you know, given that the class. But if you wanted, you could build a building and then just attach it with a walkway or something like that. I mean, yes, you could. But to make it look like something that you were proud of as a library, it would probably take a little bit more than just.
Secondary, on site construction, library sits on a hill, kind of right from the parking lot on the left-hand side where the librarians park, it's up on a hill. Is there any thoughts in these plans as to level that off, make it lower or?
Well, so most of the hill that's there was brought in during construction. But you could definitely take it off and you know, maintaining the grade that you need. But yes, the idea is to get rid of most of the hill that's there.
And one more, on this sheet of paper, my glasses aren't strong enough, so I can't tell. There was one of the options was on the corner, that you were to have two buildings, one on Valley Way and a connecting L, if you will. Is that in here? Did I just miss it, or did that get dismissed, or?
The bottom middle, is that what you're talking about?
I don't know, I can't see it.
Yeah, it's the bottom middle one.
So that would be on the two streets? I guess my thought was there any thought on that location? Then you could definitely make a quadrangle by adding in the future 2 more sides to make it a square, and then have a water fountain or something, or a park or something in the middle of that?
Yes, you could do that. You know, one of the comments we got from that was that I think parking wasn't close enough, or was there was a problem with parking?
Well, I guess if the old building was gone, I guess that could be parking there, right?
That's true, yeah.
And then one last, I guess, was there any thought about pushing Evergreen right straight through into the parking lot?
We did look at that option, and I think that the comments that we got from that option was that would cause a lot more congestion at that intersection, and that was not, is that was right?
Yeah, and to add on to that, the pedestrian linkage into the quadrangle right there has been identified as being of like major importance. So if you tried to bring vehicular traffic into that same area, it would be difficult to keep those two types of traffic.
It's kind of difficult now as it is now because it's a through street, right? And I guess that would be eliminated by putting a light there. But all right, thank you.
Yeah. So you know, we're just telling you what we heard on that, but all of those things could be doable.
Councilman Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, great job, you guys. I really appreciated the event at the train depot. I guess the first question I had before I asked questions about dollars and square footage is that on this library committee that met 6 times, who was on this library committee? Was it librarian and Brad and you guys, or?
You want me to ask that?
Yeah.
So
if you can.
Mayor Carrington, Brad Hansen, Beth Scow, and John Musi.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So you talk about square footage of the design, and what I know about building and architecture, you could fill in a shot glass. It wouldn't take this glass to do it. So you talk about gross building square footage, you're right at 20,000 or 20,030 to be precise. And then the usable square footage becomes 15,897.
Okay, so
Correct.
here's how this works. Just walls in a building is about 12% of the square footage on there. And then there's circulation on top of that, and we have 15%.
15%? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually, this was old. The circulation, we pulled the circulation. It's more like 5% now because a lot of people circulate through stacks and around, and so that went back into areas on that. And I don't know where that circulation is number, but it's actually, you know, I don't know exactly what 5% of 20,000 is, probably what.
So,
But anyway, but it's 20,000 square foot from what we normally do. A 15% is normally what used for hallways, but as we did the design, we were able to absorb a lot of that back into stack area, reading areas, and a larger meeting rooms, things like that. So, yeah.
Got some great design concepts in it for sure. So the 20,000 times the 650 a square foot is where you get to your $13 million price tag. And kind of back of the napkin math here is we have $5 million from the state. I think around $3 million from insurance, but don't quote me on that. Actually, fingers crossed. And then we could go anywhere from 5 million for this up to 10 in a bonding package. So I mean, we have what I perceive as potential wiggle room if that's what the citizens of Palmer want to see. And I appreciate the thought process that the building as it exists, which was about 8,000 square foot. So this is like a doubling of what was
I
there.
think it's more than that. It seemed
It's
like-
12.
Yeah, more like 12.
Oh, okay, so not quite a
Yeah,
doubling,
about
but we're,
60% more.
okay.
Yeah.
12,000, including the walls
Yes.
and ventilation and all that, so the usuals take away some for the usable space. So yeah, so we're looking at a significant improvement in
Yes, and-
size and other things for the community.
Right, and something that's not accounted for in the estimator's estimate is the fixtures, furnitures, and equipment, so bookshelves, desks, and all of that.
That's where the other money comes into play. Okay, I'll let somebody else have a shot. Thank you.
Councilman Tudor.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say how impressed I was whenever I went to the library meetings. You all did an amazing job. I mean, just the way you approached these, the public comments was very innovative. You guys did an amazing job on just the conceptual designs. It was really helpful seeing the design because I'll have to look at a blueprint and I don't really know, it's kind of hard for me to visualize it. So having the exterior images was super helpful. My main question is, I was looking at this and I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but I look at this, I'm looking at the cost going, oh my gosh. And I know that we are expecting some help, but when I was looking at this and going, we could potentially be looking at, quite a bit of money a year just going to a bond payment. Are there design changes you could see that would be able to reduce this, by several $1 million, such as, and I understand that, it's great to have a 2-story building. If it was 1 story, would that shave off, $2 million to $3 million? Or, are you seeing dramatic changes with those kind of things, or maybe some of the different layouts?
At this, given the building, at this point, at, how high a level that we are, and that it's a public project, I wouldn't, $650 a square foot is like, that's not knowing much about the building. That could be a rectangular building. You're not gonna be able to shave off a huge amount of money. It sounds really bad and horrible to be able to say this, but at this point in the design process, without getting further down, it's just, you want to know that you have enough money to build a 20,000 square foot building.
Yeah.
And so, could you do it cheaper? You could probably do it cheaper, and then you'd want to have the conversation about what cheaper meant. It's, just like everything else.
Sure.
Yeah. So right now, I would say the safest thing is to guess $650 a square foot, because given sort of the supply chain and the lack of labor, the force, if you want a library, right now it's good to be cautious about that instead of hoping that it's going to be less and then being surprised when the bids come in.
And I'll add on to that a little bit. So a $650 square foot price is not the highest, it could be much higher than that. We're already being conservative and not shooting for, for a top of the line, hoping for a durable building that we're proud of. But, it could be much, much higher.
Oh, yeah.
And as far as, where we arrived at the 20,000 square foot, the easiest way to shave money off of a project is to take square footage out. But just in terms of the process that we took to get to this 20,000 square foot number, we've already pared down, we went through this big effort of trying to identify all of the spaces that everybody in the community really wanted and needed. And so, we start with this huge program, and then we, identify which spaces we can overlap and be flexible and used by multiple groups. And so we've already pulled out quite a bit of square footage that might otherwise be in there. So we are paring it down to be a manageable size that will still meet the needs of the community. So we feel pretty good about the 20,000 square foot size as, giving the library everything that it needs without overdoing it. So.
And the $650 a square foot number that's the cost. I think a 30,000 square foot school bid that, the Matsu Central School. I think that's what that came in this last year. And then we'll maybe have American Academy Charter School bidding out maybe this year as well to confirm that. But that's not, that's kind of like what you would expect for maybe some school construction. And so it is fairly moderate cost range.
Okay. Yeah, and thank you so much for that. I understand this isn't going to be like a gold-plated walls or anything like that, but I always get nervous with the way prices keep going up for, parts and labor, all that kind of stuff. This might end up being $15 million by the time it's all said and done. Nothing at all to do with you guys, just with inflation and everything else. It's kind of making sure that you have the ability to be flexible if needed. And again, thank you so much for all the work you all did on this. This is really impressive. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Best.
Thank you so much. And again, I appreciate everybody bearing with me as I work off-site here. I'm down in Washington State. Gary, I really appreciate the numbers. I went through it. Coming from the industry, I think that you guys have taken the right approach on how you've engaged the public, and also your estimation of a conservative figure. I am thrilled that the way that you presented kind of the pitfalls of us utilizing the pre-existing structure and trying to maintain that. I want to impress upon the rest of the council members and reiterate and focus on if we were to go with trying to maintain that structure, how difficult it will be to tie back in and gain nothing. It really, because of how old it is time for us to walk away from this building. It served its purpose, and the old bones cannot be resurrected to where it would be as efficient, because we are also going to be utilizing new systems, and the efficiency in the construction materials and insulation, window fixtures, the heating and ventilation. I think we're going to have a cost savings in or at least probably a bigger building is going to be ran as cheaply as we are currently spending for our energy usage. So I think that's something that we need to also bring into mind. Also, it's going to be kind of new age stuff. We're going to make sure that we can kind of open up and expand and utilize technologies in a different way and much more efficient. So I think that's a concept that we really need to drive home. I'm also going to kind of change the subject, or open up the subject a little bit more. I think that we also need to re-engage with the borough, because we are all very, very aware that we provide library services to people that are not inside city limits. And I really look at this as much like a fire service area. And they are collecting taxes, and we're not getting the benefit of those taxes. And so I'd like to engage the borough into creating a library service area where we'd be able to pull into areas like Butte and whatnot that we're already providing services to, and start that conversation on the side. That would be the administration having those conversations with the borough about, and also talk with the attorney about us creating a library service area so that we can make sure that we can get that funding there, or that the borough is going to partner with us in this new construction aspect to some effect. So I look forward to going forward with a new construction and getting those packages out fairly soon. Thank you.
Councilman Cooper.
Thank you. This is potentially a contentious issue, I'm sure, with certain members on the council that, and I think we talked about it a little bit, that, we're talking about a legacy building, and I know your direction was library oriented. And I did bring up, has anybody brought up or even thought about or even care about moving City Hall into that area, which means that you bring more traffic in, more people get to see the library. I know city manager's not really excited about having the City Hall over there, but we've come to the point where when you walk around this building, our people are working in some not the best of offices, and this building is obviously very old as well, and we have new employees, and I think we need to consider that. I know the mayor is concerned that some of the monies that we're given is strictly for library use, but I don't know if anybody other than me has talked to you about moving City Hall.
It's been brought up, but it was not the direction we were given, and so, we haven't gone down that route at all. I mean, you could do it. That wasn't our direction, so we were trying to stay on the straight and narrow.
Councilman Alcantara.
Yeah, just a little comment about that part is we've had a presentation in the past from our police chief about what's happening in that old building as well. I do think, in the kind of in the hope chest, there's a potential to build a city hall and a police station down the road. I don't think we should muddle it with this library replacement and rebuild. I do think, when life hands you lemons, make lemonade. And the one thing I thank God about is that none of those folks were hurt. The few folks that were still in the library 20 minutes before closing. So I think at this point, we're common together what I think you guys are presenting a great plan. I was a little bit chagrined to hear you talk about 2026 instead of 2025, but I think reality is reality, and I don't know much about building and building materials, but I do know a little bit about supply chain and how far behind everybody and everything is. So I appreciate you folks telling us that, ordering everything and getting it in place for a 25 construction season seems to be where we can go if we can do our part and get our part done by late January here of 24 next month, that the ball can start rolling towards a summer 2026 completion. And we'll get Mr. Moosey there for the away from his grandkids for a ribbon cutting at that point in time. Thank you.
I might just comment that we did have some different discussions on things like, City Hall, or what would be the, the possibility of doing any of that. And our kind of, I don't know if we call it a compromise, was that it mentions specifically for public meeting rooms. And so one of the ideas was to make a public meeting room that be large enough to accommodate the council, and yet also make it available for the community, because, we only meet a couple times a month normally. And so that was kind of one of the accommodations towards that. We also brought in we had a few different discussions about parking, and I think Mr. Hansen was the one that kept saying, you don't want to give up that parking lot that we've worked so hard. It is a parking lot. You know, it's going to cost a lot more. And so there's been a lot of discussions of different things like that where we're going, okay, maybe we need to keep it, you know, similar to that spot. And I'm trying to figure out would it be helpful, and I don't know what the comfort level of the council, we're still in committee of the whole, so we're just talking. But they kind of mentioned the three different ideas of, you know, rebuild the existing building to 1984 specs, which I think part of the reason I think we needed to consider that is we're still negotiating with insurance, you know, versus rebuild and expand versus an actual reconstruction. I don't know if the council would be comfortable enough that we could say of those three options, we want to go with option number 3, or if there's any struggle with that. I don't know. It might help Gary to just know, okay, this is the road we're going down. You can turn now.
If we're going to get done with all the work that needs to be done by the 11th of January, we need to have a decision, because there's a lot of work to do in order to get enough information and get the building actually designed.
Councilman Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think that the community's been pretty loud and clear that they want a new building, and going after what Councilman Best was saying, I totally agree that it would be good to engage with the borough. I actually did run into one of the borough representatives a couple weeks ago when I brought this up, and the recommendation I got was for our city manager and possibly the mayor, maybe one of the person to go interface with the borough manager and talk to them. Because I even joked around about me going to one of their meetings and begging them at one of the meetings about it. So it sounds like, you know, they are relatively open to that idea of making the library service area. I think that's a really good way to go. Because my only fear is just looking at the cost and making sure that the bond that was approved is something that we can afford to make the payments on, and isn't going to just kill the city budget with all the things that we have to replace. Thank you.
Mr. Musi.
Yes, regarding Councilman Tudor's comments, I'm also very concerned. But once we have a direction in hand with some pictures, then it's time to run and make those connections with one of my favorite former employers about their contribution to our community, since we're taking care of probably 40% of their citizens with these services. Also, too, once you have that, then we can go to the foundations. There are ways to fundraise for libraries. There is also Senator Murkowski, who has been very, very diligent and good for the Alaska community. So we will make every attempt to find every available dollar for this. I think we're in a good spot that it's, number one, it's a library. Number two, we don't have a full-fledged library because of the accident at the library. And so I'm optimistic that we can collect most of these in grants and contributions to get pretty close to that number. That's what we're going to be shooting for. And recently we've been pretty doggone successful with other type of projects getting other people's money.
Councilman Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, we're here in committee of the whole. Are you just looking to take the temperature of the room and to get the 4 of us here and one on the phone to say that we're more for number 3 than we are for the other choices, or what? I mean, we're not looking for a motion later on this evening. We're just looking for take a feel of the room.
Well, I was getting a feel for the room, but then after the committee of the whole, we could make a motion that says of these 3, we vote for option 3. If there's a comfort level there. I don't want to go there if it's, going to be split. We're missing a couple people, but I don't sense any opposition to number 3.
I have a comfort level with number 3, just speaking for myself, and I think that's what Councilmember Tudor just said, so I don't know, we can kind of hear from the others here and see where we can go.
Get a nod there, and I can't see Richard's head right now to see if he's nodding or not, but.
I'm willing to express my opinion.
Yeah. Councilman Best, continue.
Thank you. Of the concepts, I liked the portal concept. It had a light airiness to it. It also engages the quad itself. It allowed for us to have an open green space that ties into the green space of the quad, where we could then potentially have more engagement, outdoor book reading kind of stuff. You could possibly have other portable features that we could move in and move out and embrace the airiness of the quad, and it kind of help to revision that quad usage for all of the community. I also like that it had parking on both sides, so it kind of shared those parking spaces more equally for other businesses that are out there that often in the off hours might have need for additional parking spaces. So I'm a big fan of the portal concept. That's all.
Okay. I was just mostly looking for, we're wanting a new building. This is what I was looking for, but hey, that's okay. We can have comments about designs as well. I think you note so. Is there anything else?
With that, I'm 100% for a new construction.
Okay, I think we'll take it to a vote when we come out of committee of the whole then, just so we can kind of clear the slate a little bit. So Gary, and another thing, just as a reminder, is we set it up so his contract really only goes through the end of January. We can re-up with him, but we kind of intentionally gave ourselves choices. But that's something to be thinking about. At the end of January, we'll want to figure out where we're going from there. Councilman Tudor.
Mayor, sorry, thank you. Is there any way we can get any kind of like pricing information about what we're looking at? I mean, I know a lot of stuff's nebulous and we're trying to figure out, we don't know what we're getting from insurance. We don't know, what we can get for grants. But is there any way to know if worst case scenario, let's say everybody just decides we're not going to help with this thing, the, insurance goes, here's just $2 million or $1 million. Is there any way to know what our annual cost would be for this bond repayment? Should we go with a new building design for $13 million? I just want to make sure we're not going to shoot ourselves in the foot later.
So we can probably ask Mr. Manager where,
So understand, we can put together multiple payment schedules based on different levels. One of the things that pretty easily could be available to us is USDA. That'll need just a little federal help to get on a list, but it's probably changed right now, but recently it was 1.9% interest payable over 40 years. So we can do some different scenarios. That's the way you want to go as opposed to taking it to the market. Right now, that's going to be a pretty heavy lift, but I can do that for you. I would also like to encourage the direction on the next basis for what are we going to do to carry on the project with an architect. An answer sooner would be better, either put together a contract or put together another RFP. And so I would not like to wait until the end of January for that decision, because if we have to put together an RFP, then we're probably going to lose the time, 2 months we have now, if you guys are thinking something different.
and as for context on that, if it was just a couple of years ago, I think we got permission to bond, was it 8 million for our water sewer plant? And we didn't bond any of it because we went to USDA. They gave us some grants and loans at the 1.9%.
We went to them for a plan to borrow money, but we got 7 million from the state, 7 million from Murkowski, so we did not go to USDA.
Oh, we didn't?
So, yeah,
Okay.
so the citizens said you have bonding power of 8 million. We did not use that. Now, there's some dexterity on existing funds by our finance director to make sure it didn't happen, so, but we were able to make that work without asking the citizens to bond for that. And we have to get citizen voter approval even to do a USDA loan, correct? Yeah.
But didn't we actually go to vote with the community for a bond?
Yes.
For the sewer? Yeah. So,
We already got that from the citizens. USDA would be one of the vehicles for bonding of the project.
so Councilman Alcantara.
On about a 80% to 20% vote, as I recall, that we got the bonding for the 10 million. I understand Councilman Tudor's thought process, and I appreciate it, to be as fiscally responsible as possible. But I think we have wiggle room, and I certainly like the idea of borrowing at 1.9% versus taxing our citizens. But I think we're in a spot. I mean, regardless of insurance blows up on our face, we still have 5 million from the state and a potential 10 million that we can do. So I mean, we still can cover the new construction, even if all other alternatives with our legislative delegation, with our congressional delegation, if they all fall flat, we still have the money to cover what's being presented.
But I think Councilman Tudor was actually specifically kind of concerned about how much the payments were that we would be doing each year. Okay. Is there any more? Should I ask Gary if he's got any questions, or? I'm presuming we're gonna do a vote after the committee of the whole to proceed on, what do we call it?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Best.
Just one more time, I'd like to also revisit what Director had mentioned about, Director Hansen had mentioned about having to go through a environmental impact study as to potential hazardous material that we need. I'd like to lend support of that as well, so that we can go ahead and get that going. I just wanted to have that conversation right now as well.
I believe, Mr. Musi, haven't we already kind of started down that road?
Yes, but I think if it exceeds, it's gonna exceed 15 million, we're gonna have to bring this back to city council.
Okay.
And I'm assuming with that comment, you want us to be prepared to do so.
Sounds that way.
Okay.
Yes.
Councilman Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As far as the potential architecture contract extension, are we needing or wanting to do something on that tonight? Are we looking at January 9th for that, which is still 4 weeks away? Or are we gonna try to get Mr. Hansen up here or Mr. Musi to tell us what that could look like? Or do they just need more time to bring that back to us?
Mr. Musi. Mr. Hansen. What is the procedure? Should we take a vote to, or give you direction to, oh, thank you. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Gary.
You know, Mr. Musi has veto power over me, right?
Yes, we know that.
Well, I think it looks like this a little bit. Number one is, I think ultimately you probably should get a recommendation from your library committee, whether or not, we feel comfortable that we've achieved the defined scope of the contract, which I believe to this point we have.
Hate to make that February or June or July 2026. That's my only thought.
So, yeah, I think, do you want an actual motion on that, or you agree with where we're going? Please-
We will
please
move
prepare
forward,
that.
and if somebody says, well, Nellie, you need to rethink this, that's what we'll do.
Okay, so we're asking the manager to prepare legislation, et cetera, that we need for that to go forward for January 9th. Yeah,
Yes, under our current,
with our
current
current,
relationship, yes.
yes, with our current architect. Okay, last chance. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Best, you good?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm fine.
Okay. So we will come out of a committee of the whole and, did we figure out how to say that? Go ahead, Councilman Alcantara.
Take a stab at it, Mr. Mayor. Thanks. I move that city council go on record for the demolish existing library and reconstruct new library design presented by Wolf Architecture.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All right, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Councilmember Alcantara,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Unanimous, okay. And I think we've already kind of given direction for the manager to proceed with for the next meeting. Well, we haven't canceled our 26th meeting, but we'll do that next meeting. Yeah, in an hour, yeah. All right, next is audience participation. Anyone wishing to speak to the council, please come forward, sign in, and start with your name. Inspired, oh, this is good.
My name is Rachel House, and I'm a City of Palmer resident. I'm also the president of the Friends of the Palmer Library, and I came tonight to hear the presentation, but I also thought I should just share, since we had a library event on Saturday. For over 10 years, we've had Alaska Celtic Pipes and Drums do a free community event for Colony Christmas, but also it's a fundraiser. And this year, we didn't have a space to do it because we couldn't have it in the library. But because our community is so amazing, we were able to use the church, the St. John's Church downtown. We had over 100 people come for the event. They donated generously, and I heard again and again, what's the decision about the library? What's happening? We want our library back. And even though many of them have been to the interim library, some of them can't bring themselves to go there because it's just really makes them, sad for what we have lost. The church has said, hey, we're here until you have your space again. So we plan to be back for an event in September, and we'll be back next year for Colony Christmas. And that's wonderful, but we really did miss being in our space, and so did the community. And I wanted you to hear that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for audience participation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I was thinking about the variety of libraries that have been recently constructed around the borough. I had the pleasure of interviewing Hugh Leslie today, who for the last 11 years has worked at the borough. And one of the things that he's in charge of, in addition to parks and recreation areas, is the libraries. So we talked a little bit about the libraries that are existing in the borough. And each one of them in the communities that they have been improved, and significant improvement, rebuilt, new library buildings. If you've been to Sutton, if you've been up to Willow, if you've been to any of them, or even over to Wasilla, those libraries have had a dramatic impact. He underlined that, and it's been my experience when I visit those communities that that's true. So I wanted to start with that and say, just talking about legacy or talking about the building, I think understates the value or the potential value of having that building there. And I appreciate Mr. Cooper's and others' looks at saying, okay, what about the bigger picture? And I know we have to be focused because there's time constraints and money constraints to having the library there. But when that new building appears, it's not going to have the same impact upon the surrounding area that the old library had. We already know that. And it's sometimes hard to get away far enough to say, okay, yeah, what does that mean for other structures such as the police department, the city hall that we're sitting in, and other things, or that street that is between the Palmer Depot and the library. I would like that street to go away, personally, and have that be part of the transition that occurs. And that requires a lot of work, DOT, others, to say, okay, how do you move traffic so it doesn't overwhelm that area? But at some point, the solution to the crossing there has to come about because it's a very poor situation. I just wanted to say those things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for audience participation? Okay, audience participation is closed and we're adjourned at 6:11. Next meeting in 18 minutes.